Today I'm joined by an absolute icon of British television, a woman whose portrayal of the timid yet endlessly endearing Mavis Wilton made her one of Coronation Street's most beloved characters. Over the years, she shared scenes with the likes of Rita, Derek, Norris, and even a few budgies. And now she's back on our screens in the heartwarming short film Sleepless In Settle. It's an absolute privilege to welcome Thelma Barlow to the podcast. Thelma, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, lovely to meet you, Michael.
Really lovely to meet you too. Tell me about coming out of retirement to film Sleepless in Settle then. How
Mm.
did you come to be involved in this film?
I had no intention of working again, but there was a friend who had written quite a lot of things, and I'd seen two of her short films. She's an actress and a very good one,
Mm.
Judy Flynn. And she said, could she write something for me? And I was delighted when she set about it. I don't think I hesitated at all. I thought, yes. and, um, and so she wrote this lovely piece, and we talked about it quite a lot because we're all Northerners,
Mm.
she and her husband, Graham, and we talked about it a lot. And we were very much on a wavelength, so that was very good. And well, it just developed. And we did it, I think, about a year and a half ago now in Rye.
Hmm.
And it was just the best thing ever because I started off in theatre and did, about 15 years. Of course, we had the wonderful rep theatres in those days, and I was so lucky to train really in those, and fortunately in some of the very best ones. So it was like being back in my first job in the
Oh,
theatre with
lovely.
a lot of young people, and there
Yeah.
were young technicians on this, and everybody just had this great feeling of trying to do the best they could. And we realize how that sort of does go a bit, fade a bit, but the first thing of just getting getting into it and really pulling together and this wonderful bonding that you make. And
Mm,
it
mm.
was so enjoyable, every minute
Oh.
of
It touches on the themes of love and connection, as well as being
it.
able to
Mm.
leave a little bit of legacy behind as well. How much did those messages resonate with you?
Well, very much because at the moment everything is so downbeat. I mean, we have terrible news day by day,
Mm.
and all the programs on the television are criminals or war or medicals or you just said, oh, just let's have something that is delightful, charming, and make you feel good. And so I think it does. I think, well,
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
reaction anyway, people say it's one of those things that, there's so few of them now. And maybe it'll start to trend. It would be very nice if it does, because people don't want to be beset with bad story. Well, maybe they do, I don't know, but it's very sad. And this is also, it shows that different generations can be very happy, live happily together. I
Mm,
mean,
mm.
quite often people are so busy and they don't have their parents. We have all these problems in hospitals of people not being able to go home because there's no one to go home to.
Mm.
Whereas in my long life, when I was young, it was automatic that you looked after your parents,
Yeah.
as they got old.
Mm.
But it's changed so much. And I think it just shows that, you can be a very happy old person. You don't have to be miserable. But,
Absolutely, absolutely.
if you're fortunate enough to have good health.
Yeah. So in the film, your character, Barbara, tries to find a nice lady friend for her son. And he's not too happy when he finds out that she's been interfering. As
It's
a
a
mother,
terrible thing to
can you
do.
sympathize with Barbara still wanting to have a hand in her very much grown-up child's life to some
Oh,
extent?
yeah, because you never stop wanting to pick your children up at 62 or 3 and put them on your knee and say, never mind, it'll get better. You never lose that sort of feeling of trying to make things good for them. And
Yeah.
of course, she's so old that she's looking towards her own end and thinking he's going to be left on his own.
Mm.
And so it would be nice if they had somebody to do things with.
Yeah. Well, I loved how you were getting into a bit of yoga in the film as well. I mean, did you like to stay active yourself with a bit of yoga from time to time?
I do, I do. I don't do yoga now. I have two new knees about 22 years ago or something. And so that proved more difficult. So I do Pilates now.
How did you feel then getting in front of the camera again after so long off of screens?
And that was just second nature. I
Was
didn't
it?
feel anything any different. Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, I've never been a very technical person about acting on television, so I could have probably been much better if I had learned about camera angles and done it properly.
As a very small, intimate production, wasn't it? Did you get to have any say in kind of how the film went?
Not in production.
No.
No, I mean, we talked about it a lot in the writing, and because one knows the sort of lingo in the north, and so. But Judy is from Lancashire and I'm from Yorkshire,
Mm.
and so is Graham Turner.
Yeah.
But there are things that you think, oh, we used to say that and so on. So there were little bits that we talked about and sometimes altered.
Yeah, yeah. I get the impression that around 60 years after your first TV appearance, and even longer than that since you first appeared on stage, that acting really is in your blood. Would you mind speaking a little bit about how you first got into the business, as it were?
Yes, purely arbitrary. A friend and I got tired of doing shorthand typing at night school and looked through the syllabus, found speech training and dramatic art, and we both agreed we could do like to go to that.
Hmm.
And then I joined the amateurs in Huddersfield, where I lived. And then more and more, I knew that I was so much happier when I was doing theatre work for the amateurs in Bradford and Huddersfield, and than I was in my daytime job. I wasn't very good at it. Maybe that's why I didn't enjoy it.
Was it a natural step to move from theatre onto
Mm.
television?
But as I was saying, I mean, coming from a very long time back, my mother was living with us because it was automatic in those days that if your one parent was widowed, they went to live with one of the children. It
Mm,
was just automatic.
okay.
And my mother had been widowed. She was widowed just before I was born, actually, just a few weeks. And so she came. She was living with me as an old lady, and so it was a big. I took 2 years to sort of prepare her for my leaving. But
Mhm.
it wasn't a thing I should have done. You stay with look after your parents until you get married, and then she stays with you, or he stays with you.
Mm.
So it's a very different way. And at the end, I was driven to do that. I didn't know how I could do it. And I cried all the way to London on the train, thinking I'd been a very bad daughter, leaving my mum. Sure, she's never lived alone in her life, so I think she was great.
Yeah.
But no, she did come to live with us. but I was actually driven to do it. There was just something inside me that said I must do it.
Yeah.
I knew one other person in London, and I got a little bed sit and lived there a year doing my shorthand typing as a temp.
Right.
And then I got a job in my first theatre.
But when it came to Coronation Street, then that was only for a single episode appearance, wasn't it? How did you come
Mm.
about auditioning for that?
It was, I don't know. I thought, oh, yes, I do. I'd left, we were living in near Glasgow then, in Lenzie, and a director I had worked with was working at the Liverpool Theatre,
Hmm.
and he asked me to go down to play something, and I did, and I think a casting person from Granada had seen me in that, thought, you're after this funny little creature. And I mean, there's not much to go on when you get a script out of the blue with a character like that.
Yeah.
And so we just had to go for it and do something.
Yeah.
And Mavis emerged. And then a
Yeah.
year later, they asked me back for another episode or two episodes or something. And it was Emily who got married.
Mm, mm.
I went to her engagement party and got a little drunk.
Yeah.
Um, And then, yeah, then went back. And they tied me in with conversation with Graham Haverfield, and he was a character that was established, and he was very shy,
Yes.
different, you know. So,
Yeah.
and they obviously thought there's something to be got out of this.
Mm.
And then another year on, and they asked me back for 3 months. So they
Right.
were
And then
really
it built from
testing
there.
me.
Had
And
you watched much Coronation Street before you got the part
no,
in
no,
it?
well, working in the theatre, of course, I hadn't, and I wasn't recording.
Mm.
And then it was, excuse me, it was sort of going on, but I didn't, I was putting kids to bed at about that time
Yeah.
of night. Things like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's very frightening to go into, oh,
I
a
bet.
new girl
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
everybody's so new. There are only about 25 people in it, I think, then. There's about 80
Mm.
now.
Mm.
But just to go in, I had it as soon as I knew, you know, I was inquiring for the job and got it. I watched it as much as possible, and that's these people and they were together all these years and they knew each other very well. And so I was very
Yeah.
frightened.
So it's quite funny because even though you just had a few scenes in those early episodes, it really felt like Mavis was a very fleshed out character just from that. I rewatched it again the other day, and you can just imagine what sort of person she was from those few scenes at the
Oh,
engagement
good. I
party.
must have hit it right.
I think you did. So is it just because I mean, did it make such a good impression then, and that's why they decided to take you on as a regular a few years later?
Yeah, I suppose so. Well, they could see possibilities and they didn't have a character like.
Hmm.
So I think, you know, it was another ingredient in the recipe.
Yeah, yeah. Mavis was always a very timid character, wasn't she? And she was especially
Mm.
nervous during that job interview with Rita, where I think she hiccuped all the way all the way through it, if I remember rightly. Do you remember having similar nerves about making the leap to a regular character?
It wasn't as frightening to go to a regular character. It's just being in it to begin with,
Mm.
and you feel such an alien thing about, you know, it's me from outside, and they all know each other very well and work together. Um, but yes, no, I mean, just becoming regular, it was really wonderful for me because my marriage was being a bit difficult at that time. So, and my mother was living with me, so I could leave the boys, you know, my two sons to do well in Cheshire and in Scotland.
Hmm.
And then eventually we moved down to Manchester.
Yeah. And I suppose you had no idea then that it would go on to last 25 years nearly, did you?
Yes, I thought it was 23, but anyway.
Yeah, I think you
Well,
might be right. I
especially
think
the
it was
very first,
25, including the engagement
including
party
those
scenes.
first
Yeah.
stepping stones.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Um, yeah, I had no idea. I wouldn't have thought, because having had most of my work in repertory where there were three weekly and monthly reps, and so there's a wonderful change of
mm.
thinking and character, you know, totally.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wouldn't have thought I would have played the same character. But the interesting thing is that it becomes sort of in miniature. You have to think of, you know, have I ever, if you've got a script and you suddenly have a scene with somebody who's been in it maybe a month, 3 months, and you suddenly have a scene with that person, and you think,
Yeah.
oh, how has that affected me? What do I think of her or him?
Mm.
And so it's interesting. It's like painting in miniature.
I bet.
But you've got to find all these fine things, and then anyway, it was a lovely, a very happy time for me.
Mavis and Rita went on to become one of the show's most beloved double acts. What is it about those two together that you think was such telly gold?
Well, they're such opposites
Yeah.
to begin with, weren't they? And I mean, everybody came down rather heavily on Mavis to begin with, but um, I think she gradually it rubbed off on her this sort of a little bit of spirit, you know, and she got more strength and um, yeah, but I think the difference to begin and they were really good friends, although,
Mm.
there was a lot of stick coming from Rita.
Oh, Rita was so mean to her, wasn't she?
Well, she, I think she probably irritated Rita. Oh, for God's sake, get some spine, woman,
Yeah.
that sort of, for goodness sake, stand up for yourself. Because she was being very soppy with all these men folk. She had so many men in her life, actually, over the
Yeah.
years.
Mm.
Never came to anything until it came to
No.
Derek.
It's really sad to think because you talked earlier about being paired with Jerry Booth, Graham's character, and then unfortunately he passed away before that could develop
Yeah,
into anything.
that was so sad. So
Mm.
sad.
Mm.
He was a
Do
very
you,
good actor.
yeah. Do you have any favourite memories of working alongside Barbara Knox in the cabin? Any particular scenes or moments that stick with you?
Um, well, we used to sort of discuss a few scripts, as soon as we got a new script, and but she had some particular scathing things. I can't even tell you what it was. But yes, but we did rehearse it together a lot
Mm.
because she was theatre background,
Right.
and I think that was the joy of it. And then Peter when he came in to play Derek,
Hmm.
and we just loved that rehearsal. That's when you do the work, you know. And I suppose thinking we used to pinch the Pontefract cakes out of the
Yeah.
shop. It was like licorice. Oh, and then one of that there was fish and chip shop in the show at one time,
Hmm.
and I think I think it was probably the first time it was in, and we'd finished our work, we finished our scenes. We said, let's go and pinch some chips, some fish or something. So we did, and then of course they saw us eating them, and somebody came racing down from the box and said, don't, they've been sprayed, they've been sprayed. So we had to find an antidote. I think it's somewhere in America. And we were both going out separately that night. But we had to take this number to ring, and oh, goodness me.
Oh my
That served
God.
us right for being minor thieves.
It did, it did.
Oh, imagine it smelling so good, you have to go and pinch it.
Now, of course, you and Barbara made headlines again a couple of years ago when you met up for her 90th birthday
Yeah,
documentary. That must
yeah.
have been lovely. Tell me a bit about reconnecting
Oh,
with
yeah,
her.
it was lovely because we don't speak very often on the phone occasionally,
Mm,
but seeing each other after such a long time, and I mean, of course, I could see her on television, but she had, and well, I suppose she could have seen me occasionally, but it was just you're just back to the old times. There's absolutely no difficulties, no barriers or anything. And so we had a lovely day. It was really nice at the flower show.
yeah,
Barbara's so funny.
yeah, yeah. It's
And
still a real treasure in the show as well. It's lovely that she stayed on for so long. Do you ever get any kind of twinges of regret about when you left, or does it feel like that was the right time?
no, it was the right thing for me.
Mm,
Absolutely right. And Helen's just left. And
yes.
it's probably the right thing for her too.
Mm,
If you just know, I think, when you want to go. I
mm.
couldn't be doing it now. But no, it was. I just felt I had to get back to theatre. I wanted to do theatre again,
Mm.
and that happened, fortunately.
We were
Um,
talking earlier about how Mavis got more of a backbone as she went through. And one thing I really liked is after Derek's funeral, they gave you the opportunity to stand up to your neighbours who had been making fun of you. Were you
yeah,
glad that
that
she
was a
had
good
that
scene,
chance?
wasn't it? That
Mm,
was a really good scene. I quite like to see that again. Yeah, it was because I think she changed when she met Derek and
mm.
Victor, of course, the
Victor
big
Pendlebury,
rivalry.
yes.
Um, I love Peter Baldwin. I had worked for in the theatre and
Oh,
worked
really?
together twice before. Yeah, so it was lovely when he came into the program. He was such a nice man,
What are some
and
memories that you've got of working with Peter on the show?
Peter. Well, again, I'm laughing a lot, but and I loved his sort of indignation as a character. He could get so pompous. And but I think, and his by meeting him, she became shrew
Mm,
in the end. You know, the mouse was shrew, because she could see he needed to stand up for himself on occasions, and
mm.
his bombast could be blown apart just like that. Um, but he was just such a kind and dear man, and and that was very happy with Barbara as well. You know, we had nice things to do,
Mm,
um,
mm.
a lot together.
Yeah. A lot of the time that Mavis and Derek together, they were the butt of the joke of so many of their neighbours, didn't they? Des Barnes in
Yeah.
particularly. Did it bother you at all, or did you quite like playing the underdogs?
Well, it gave us a lot of comedy to play.
Yeah.
That's what I liked about it, I
Yeah.
suppose. Yeah.
I mean, when I think back to the
Did Des Barnes? Did you say Des Barnes then?
Des Barnes, yeah.
Des Barnes, yes. I mean, that was an occasion when that boat, his boat, that huge boat he had in the garden, we were sitting on our little sun lounger thing, and it fell over into the garden.
Yeah.
And Peter didn't. Peter, I think I'm a risk taker because Peter was so worried about it, so trying, and we did it, and it was fun, and I really enjoyed it. But um, very recently, this was really about our profession. I've heard from Amelia Bullmore, who played his wife, Steph,
Oh, really?
and we haven't spoken well since she left. You know,
Yeah.
in the 90s. So for 30 years, so she's going to come down to see me.
That's
And
lovely. That's
oh,
lovely.
I love that happening. Yeah.
Yeah, the Barnes versus the Wiltons was classic. When I think back to the Wiltons, there's so many funny scenes and stories. You know, the gnomes being stolen, the aphrodisiac
Yeah.
parsnips, that iconic waterbed scene with
Hey,
Reg and Maureen.
I think the script writers must have had a lot of fun thinking those scenes up, and we did playing them. You know, we both like playing comedy.
Yeah. What was the waterbed scene like? Because that was one
Well,
of Corrie's most iconic comedy moments, isn't it?
yes, I don't think I found that. I don't know. I've never seen it since, so maybe I
Have
didn't
you
find it
not?
fun. Never.
It's good that you're a part of it at least. And
Are they all
another,
online?
pardon?
Are all
Oh
those
yeah,
things on?
they're all online. You can watch them, Thelma. I think you need to go back and watch some of them. You just relive some of the glory days, or stick on
Yeah,
ITV3
yeah,
at least.
yeah, it'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
I
I
love the
also
film
love.
we did on. Sorry,
I was also
we
going to say comedy wise, something that made me laugh so much. Do you remember when they brought in Victor Pendlebury's wife, Yvonne, who was like a spitting image of Mavis?
I remember he caused a lot of problems, didn't he?
Yeah.
Victor.
Did you
Um,
mind being a bit of a caricature and then taking you and then taking it to the extreme?
I must look at it again to remind myself. I mean,
And speaking of caricatures as well, I must ask, what do you think of Les Dennis's portrayal of Mavis?
oh, I loved it. It
Yeah,
was so. His was. I mean, quite a few people did it, but
did they?
his was the best. It was very accurate, and we met Liz Dawn, who played Vera.
Hmm.
We met at some event, and they came up to us and said, "Hope you don't mind, but we're playing you two characters in a show we're doing." And I said, "Oh no!" Anyway, I couldn't go to see it for some reason. It was only on another week, and I think I was booked up or something. But Liz saw it and said how good it was, and I did see him do it, of course, later. And he was very, very, I mean, he did caricature it. And I didn't realize she'd said, I don't really know, as much as, as to make it her say it.
I think Les has definitely said it a lot more than Mavis did. It was funny
Yeah.
because I was watching some of the old episodes a few years ago, and there was a Christmas Day episode, and Mavis says it, and me and my wife looked at each other, and she said, "Ah, she said I don't really know."
Les said it. Yeah, well, it became sort of. I think it was very funny because I was standing at some lights on Deansgate in Manchester, and a huge lorry came alongside, stopped at the lights, leaned out of the window, and this great burly lorry was going in, and then a schoolboy would do it, and it really had caught on by Dennis doing it. But whenever it came up in a script as proper dialogue for me, I thought, I sound like Dennis. I had to find a different way to say it.
So you've said in countless interviews that a return to the cobbles for Mavis is quite unlikely. You'd have to get a really good script for it. Have they tried to tempt you back over the years? And
yes, a few things have come up, but no, I mean it was a wonderful part of my life. I'm so grateful for it, because I could become independent at the right time in my life, and what actors, very few actors get as much work as that. I've just been so lucky to have that not. And something like that, it's only a year at a time. You only get a contract for a year, so you can't sit back on your laurels and say, I'm in for life. But I don't think so. I didn't expect to stay in that time, but as I say, I find the character interesting always because you had these things to work out every time, how you'd react.
Yeah. Do you still keep in touch with many people from your Corrie days?
Well, not many left, you see, that I worked with. But Barbara, as I say, I talk to occasionally. And Helen Worth is the one I see most often. And they're coming down quite soon, actually, she and her husband. So, and we just, lunch and lovely chats and things like that. But it's a long, true friendship.
Yeah, lovely.
And, those are so supporting. I think friendship is wonderful.
And has Sleepless in Settle revitalized that acting bug again for you? Can you see yourself taking part in any other projects in the future?
Only if it promised to be as good as that. I mean, to go into a big studio, I don't think I know I would want to do, because it would be such a responsibility on my shoulders. I'm not prepared to do it.
No. But I mean,
very old.
Sleepless in Settle is great, and I do urge anyone who's listening to this or watching this to go and watch it. It's such a lovely comedy. I enjoyed it so much. And what are you kind of hoping for in terms of success for the film? Do you just want people to see it?
Yes. Well, I think it's just such a nice story. It's the story that I think is so charming and warming, and we get little enough of it. And maybe the whole cycle of the world is going round. It's so awful at the moment. Maybe we're coming back to nice things, but and trying to be kind and fun. But a smile, just smile at people and be switch that miserable face off and finding everything awful. I know I'm lucky, and I'm not having to pinch and serve. I don't know how people do it, but so many people have such things happening in their lives. But there's somebody else who's not. You can be a bit try to just help people and be pleasant, and it doesn't take much. You can decide every morning you wake up which way your mouth's going to go, up or down. I've just been so lucky, so I know how lucky I am. But things are looking, I think, and that we're starting to go on and maybe an upward trend, I hope. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, also, what you were saying, what for the future, because I don't particularly want to work a lot anymore, but I would for the same people, with the same people. And Judy, I think, writes so well.
Yeah.
And has so many inspirations and ideas. I think, oh God, I wish I had that. And Graham is a lovely actor, Graham Turner, and he was lovely to work with. And I think work is so hard in the business anyway, in theatre, in television, and so it would be lovely if it could lead to something for them.
That would be lovely indeed. Oh,
It would.
Judy, I remember her from the British Empire back in the 90s. So to see that
Yeah.
she was working with you again, it's like, oh, I remember her. That was lovely to
Yes,
hear.
yeah. But the reviews we've had, and people who've seen it have just lift your heart, you just feel so much better for seeing something like
Yeah. Oh,
that.
Thelma, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today. It's been lovely speaking to you, and honestly, such a joy to watch Sleepless and Settle as well. I hope that it gets in front of lots of people's
But
eyes.
that's lovely. Thank you for the interview. I've
No
enjoyed
worries.
talking to
Absolute pleasure speaking to you, Thelma. Thank you so much for coming on.
you.